All right, so today we are talking about probably one of the most important topics on the ITF Plus. Actually, you know what? Wait. Overall of IT, and that is troubleshooting, okay? If you don't understand how to troubleshoot problems, you're really gonna struggle in the world of IT and cybersecurity. So being able to look at a problem and then have your own methods to kind of step you through to solve the problem. We can't just throw stuff at a problem and hope something works. We need to have a tried and true method for us to step through problems. And that's what we're going to talk about today in Module 1, Unit 5, Troubleshooting and Support. Okay, so what exactly are we looking at today? So our objectives are to describe basic support and troubleshooting procedures, and then talk a little bit about different websites and tools that you can use in order to find more information, okay? Just note that you're not in this alone. Okay, you actually have access to tools that you can go on a manufacturer's website, you can go on Reddit, you can go on different groups that you're a part of and get help with the problems that you're seeing. Okay, so I don't want you to think that you exist in a bubble when it comes to troubleshooting different problems. Okay, so when it comes to support, like learning how to be good at troubleshooting is not something that you could just watch this video and then boom, I'm a subject matter expert. No, it's going to take you time. Okay, you're going to kind of build your own knowledge base of, oh yeah, I remember that one time I fixed this printer issue by doing X, Y, and Z. And you'll just become more efficient, okay? But first starting out, we're actually going to talk about CompTIA's kind of troubleshooting methodology. And this is going to carry you all the way through all of your CompTIA certification exams. Okay, this will pop up. This is going to be a reoccurring theme throughout all CompTIA certifications. And I really like their way that they kind of spell things out. And it's really helped my students kind of pause, think through possible solutions, try them. If you remember back to maybe middle school or elementary school, you might have had like a science fair project, right? And in that science fair project, you had the scientific method. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Kind of that scientific method of proving something, but we're going to apply it to IT and troubleshooting, okay? We're going to talk a little bit about problem solving and kind of diagnosing issues. So being able to look at something and, have steps that you take in order to, isolate, okay, is this a hardware and software issue? Okay, this is kind of our first kind of flow chart. Okay, if I take the hardware out of it, for example, let's say a keyboard's not working on a laptop. This happened this weekend. Boot into a different operating system and see if the keyboard works, because that's going to help you understand, is it a Windows issue or is it a hardware issue? Okay, so really trying to get into diagnosing and drilling down into what exactly the problem is. And you'll often hear that referred to as root cause analysis. Why is this happening? Let's get to the root of it and figure out what's causing these issues, okay? Talking a little bit about symptoms and then also consequences. So kind of if this, then that. So if I can't ping the DHCP server, let's say I set a manual IP address, and we'll get into networking, and then I don't get an IP address, we're not in the same network, okay? Or if I unplug a power cable, then the power button doesn't work, right? Those are kind of some of those symptoms and consequences. And then finally, the last thing is appreciating the priorities and business needs. So once you dig into ITIL does a lot of this, but there's different levels of needs. So for example, I'm trying to think, and not that it's not important, but let's say there is a student iPad in an elementary classroom that's not working. That's one of the help desk tickets. And then the other one is the accounts payable person, her computer is not working and payroll's due by 4 o'clock. Okay, so that's kind of determining, that's a very, big difference between the two. But that's what we're trying to get you to understand, is what is the most important thing to kind of sink your teeth into and solve and kind of help you prioritize, okay? So this is the CompTIA troubleshooting model, okay? So this is a 8-step process in which the first thing we do is identify the problem, okay? We're gonna get as much information as we can, maybe duplicate the issue. So let's say, for example, a teacher is having an issue where her smartboard, the mouse goes to 1 point all the time, okay? When we go in there, we want to make sure that we can replicate that issue so that way we can kind of drill into it. Because a teacher saying, my mouse isn't working, could mean that there is a broom on her interactive whiteboard or her smartboard. Okay, that 100% happened to me. So you have to kind of recreate the issue before you can really dive into it. And sometimes the issues don't present themselves, and you can just kind of think about what could be causing this issue and maybe run updates on the computer, restart it, stuff like that. But you really do want to try to replicate that issue. This will also be where you start to question or ask the users, when does this happen? Is it a certain time every day? You're trying to correlate and get as much information as figuring out this, if this, then that. Okay. So again, that root cause analysis and trying to figure out what could be causing the issue. Okay. And another common thing is asking, has anything changed recently? That is $1 million question. Oh, well, yeah, I just moved my computer and now the internet isn't working. Cool. Let's make sure that we moved our network cable, or if you moved maybe further away from the access point, those little things can help you kind of determine what the issue is. Okay. So from there, we're going to research a little bit. And again, this is if applicable. So we're going to think about it. We're going to stew on it. And maybe it's an issue that's not something that you can fix within a couple minutes. You might have to research it. You might have to go to the manufacturer's website. You might just have to Google the problem. Okay. So for example, this weekend, I had that Surface Book Pro where the keyboard wasn't working. What did I do? I Googled that. Okay. I tried a couple things, making sure stuff wasn't disabled, had to restart it, whatnot. But I went online. I was like, hey, let's see what's going on. And you joke, but Google that's what we do 99% of the time is we're going to Google that problem and see. We don't want to recreate that wheel, right? We want to see what is already out there as far as people solving our issue. So from there, we're going to establish a theory of probable cause. Okay, and what that means is, okay, I think it might be this. So we can then say I can update the driver, okay? Or I can boot into a different operating system. I can try this possible solution. So we're at this point, we're dividing and conquering. We are considering different ways that we can try to solve this. And then we're going to move on to test our theory. Okay, so testing our theory, booting into that other operating system, the keyboard worked fine. So we now know that it's not a hardware issue. Okay, so now we can go and continue on researching and then trying different things. Now that we know we've isolated it to being a Windows software issue, we can then spend more time trying to solve that issue from within Windows. We can come up with some new theories, and then we can test those theories and see if we can figuring out, what it could be. And then finally, we're going to establish our plan of action. So our plan of action might be, hey, we need to reinstall the operating system. Okay, verify with the user, get everything backed up, do a clean install of Windows, and then from there, we are going to verify. So now we're moving on to step 7. We're going to verify full system functionality, making sure everything's working, copying that user's data back on, or something as simple as plugging in a network cable, making sure that you can, ping your default gateway, you can get out to the rest of the world. We're going to make sure that it works. And then finally is documenting our findings and lesson learned. Now, this could be in your own personal, if it's a small place, your own personal kind of notes. I had a wiki for a long time, just a personal wiki that I installed on my hosting that I had, documented stuff on. If you're at an organization, chances are you have a knowledge-based tool, and that as you're closing the ticket, and the Helpdesk ticket system can be your kind of documentation as well. So that way, what an issue is having, let's say in 6 months I have an issue, or another technician has an issue with the Surface Book Pro, they can go into the Helpdesk ticket and type in Surface Book Pro and keyboard, and then see what pops up. Okay, we want to document our findings, so that way, again, we can be much more efficient next time this issue comes up. So I promise you some portion of this slide will show up on the ITF Plus, A Plus, all of those, okay? I think even like Network Plus, anytime that you're going into a more technical certification, this is going to come up. And it might seem like common sense, but there's so many times that I've been mentoring IT support technicians, and I was like, okay, what did you do? Well, I tried this. Okay, well, what made you try that? Well, I don't know. I didn't. I was like, okay, did you walk me through your troubleshooting process. And they didn't really have one. They just went in there and ran updates and restarted it, and it didn't work. They didn't really drill down and see kind of what was causing that issue. Okay. So the first thing is, I'm just going to kind of go over this stuff again, kind of giving it a second pass, because it is extremely important that I mean, this is the bulk of this module. So just some tips: identifying the problem, questioning users. That's going to be a huge one. Duplicating the problem, okay? And the questioning users can even come in before you even get there. Hey, can I get some more information on this? And then when you get there, duplicating that issue. Approach multiple problems individually. So if they're like, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, okay, slow down. We need to, again, be methodical in how we approach this. So we want to attack those issues one at a time, because they could be different things. They could all not be tied to one issue. And then finally, gather as much information. This is our gathering step, okay? We want to get as much information as possible. When it started happening, is it a certain time it happens? Is there certain applications that are loading and then something crashes? That's this first portion of our troubleshooting methodology, okay? From there, we're going to understand kind of what that problem is. So questioning the obvious: did you restart the computer? Did anything change in the, since this started happening? And you might think that they would have already thought of those things, but I promise you, after being in IT now for almost 15 years, over 15 years, I promise you they're not thinking about that, because at the end of the day, they're thinking about being efficient at their job. So they are making sure that they are focused on, like, for example, I'm going to go back to teaching because I've been in educational IT for most of my career. They're focused on, they have 30 kids looking back at them. They don't have time to think about all these things that have happened. They're worried about getting that information, that knowledge to those students. And that's why they put in that help desk ticket, for you to come in as a subject matter expert to kind of help them solve those problems. And then at some time, after we go through, we might not be able to fix the problem. We might have to escalate it. And whether that escalation is to somebody in your own department or to a manufacturer, again, the escalation might be on, you might have to post a question to the message boards. Hey, have you seen this? Have you seen this problem? So again, you might have to escalate it if it's beyond your capabilities, or you just can't fix it. After you spent so much time on it, you're going to have to pass that on. Okay. So when we're establishing our plan of action, we can either repair it, replace it, or ignore it, or put a workaround in. And that last one might seem like a cop-out of just ignoring it, but you will run into things where you just have to do a workaround, whether that's until parts show up or the manufacturer doesn't support software anymore. That workaround might become the permanent fix. But those are kind of your three options: is to repair the issue, replace the computer or the device or the software, or ignore the issue, okay? So that's kind of establishing what is our plan of action, okay? From that point, we're going to implement whatever solution that we pick. We are going to verify everything works, and then we're going to document those findings, okay? So you can see here as an example for creating a ticket, we have the contact information, we have a summary of what the issue is, kind of like a one-liner, we have a description, and again, mileage may vary whenever you get to your first IT job on what tool they're using to do help desks. It might be emails. I hope not, because you don't get good analytics from that. It might be a Google form, a little bit better, but not exactly the best solution. There are free solutions out there. Like I think Spiceworks might still be around, and there's a few other ones. But again, you want to have this knowledge base where you can hold on to all of this information, so that way you can be more efficient in the future, okay? So when it comes to troubleshooting PC issues, let's talk a little bit about the process in which a computer, the kind of phases a computer goes through when it's first booting up, okay? So the first thing it's going to do is when you hit that power button, it's going to post or do a power on self-test. In my previous videos, I talked about this, where it's like you getting up in the morning, you start from your toes, you work all the way up through your body, kind of checking on things, making sure your muscles are working. You might do like a little bit of stretch, whatever it is. And then your operating system kicks in. Okay, so the BIOS is going to then kind of take over. At that point, the BIOS is going to say, hey, check everything. And then it's going to pass it off to the operating system. And that's like your brain kind of turning on, probably grabbing your phone first thing in the morning and starting with your day. Okay. So when you're first going through this process, if it's not posting, every motherboard is different, but sometimes you'll get either beep codes or you might get lights on the motherboard, and that'll kind of give you a hint onto what the issue is. And again, you can find definitions of what those beep codes mean or those lights on the motherboard by going to the manufacturer's website. Okay. So double checking, making sure that fans are spinning, making sure that you may or may not hear beeps. If you don't have video, that's where we're going to start coming up with, okay, what is the pot? If it's not booting up, for example, what could possibly be wrong? Okay, so it could be the memory, an issue with the memory, the power supply. These are all things that we need to check to make sure that it's getting through post. Okay, and then once it gets through post, then it goes into the operating system. We can't really eliminate hardware because there could be issues with like a hard drive or RAM or whatever it is, but from there, depending on what the issue is, we can kind of start figuring out, okay, it's not hardware, maybe it's software, and we can dive a little bit deeper on that. Okay, so if you hear multiple beeps when it first comes on, it might be like a beep, beep, beep. Look on the manufacturer's website for that motherboard, for that computer. Let's say it's a Dell. Okay, put in that service tag, see if you can find out what those beeps mean, and make sure that, hey, this thing's beeping. What do these three beep codes mean? Or if you just get like a dark screen, let's say, well, it could be a couple things, right? It could be a memory issue. It could be the power supply, like our fans turning on, or the monitor could be bad, or a monitor cable could be bad. Okay, so you have to really think through what is the probable cause here. What are some of the easy things that we can try and implement as our solution, right? So getting support outside of kind of outside of your own knowledge bases, manufacturers' websites are great. Especially Dell, you type in the service tag and you can see if there's like known issues or updates that need to be done. Going through and looking at manufacturers' websites for like printers, for hardware like let's say video cards or RAM or motherboards, and making sure that you can maybe get driver updates or just look at documentation for known issues, okay? Also, going online to sites like Reddit or forums, those are also a great place that you can get more information. Windows does have troubleshooting. I will say that it's gotten better over the years, like Windows 7 and beyond. I feel like, especially with like the networking stuff, if you're having networking issues, it does a pretty good job. But you can look at the Windows helps and tips, which is kind of built in. As far as the certification is concerned, it is here as a resource. As far as like being in IT, probably won't use it. Like I said, the only one that the automated troubleshooters that I'll sometimes use is like the built-in Windows troubleshooter for the network, just because it's quick and easy. And as I'm like looking around for solutions, it can sometimes automatically fix them for me. If you do have to call support, okay, make sure that you have all of the information, all important information before you call. So things like serial number, things like operating system version, things like BIOS, revision date. Those are all things that you're going to want to know ahead of time, what model it is, okay? Otherwise, when you call support, you're going to be scrambling and it's going to be frustrating, okay? Purchase date also helps to know if it's under warranty, and a good description of what the problem is, okay? That is huge. Using search engine, you can dig deep into like Google Advanced Search, but honestly, most of the time, I will just Google the issue and see those first couple results before I go into the more advanced Googling. Okay. So again, our biggest takeaways from this lesson is describing our basic troubleshooting procedures and then using websites and tools to obtain support. Okay, but again, I urge you to focus on this skill. Don't just run into problems and just try to throw solutions at the wall. Come up with a good methodology to make you more efficient. Okay, by being a good technical problem solver, you are going to go much further into this career instead of someone that just shows up and throws solutions at the problem without pausing and taking your time. Okay. So I'm going to put a couple review questions up on the screen, and then I'm going to pause it for a minute, and then I will put the answers up on the screen as well. All right, so I hope you did well with those test questions. Again, at the bottom, that advanced search one, I don't think that's really like an ITF where you have to know how to use Google Advanced Search. Just know that you have to understand, just know that it's out there. That on Google, you can go through and you can do some more advanced searches and really narrow down kind of what you're looking for, okay? If you have any questions or if you're studying for your ITF Plus, I actually put a link in the description that'll have a 15-page study guide that has test questions, has outlines, stuff like that, in order to help you study for your ITF Plus. And as always, if you have any questions or you're struggling with anything, please feel free to reach out. Thanks for watching.